I'm joined by Conor Faulkner of the AA because, Conor, you have research, scientific I'm sure, of what distracts men in motor cars, but I don't think, to be honest, we needed scientific research to know that.
Well, it may not be as earth-shattering as what they achieved in CERN this same week, but yes, we did. And this is something that we do through our insurance arm. AA motor insurance people will know, and we ask motorists about a whole range of things through detailed questionnaires, and we get fantastic participation and some really good information from people, and that enables us to, take seriously our policy positions on tolls or drink driving or various aspects like that. But we also ask some more light-hearted things, and we were asking people about what distracts them while driving.
Okay.
Now, this is a survey of 15,500 Irish motorists, so it's big numbers.
Yeah.
And
that is legitimate. The numbers give it great legitimacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, if you ask people what distracts them, roughly for most people, about 15% of drivers out there are prone to moments of distraction which would have caused them a near miss or a fright or in some cases a minor collision. And the things are things like advertising, billboards, pedestrians, a football match going on in the field, Gardaí stopping a car, and the process of rubbernecking appears to cause people to slow down and can distract them. And that was all pretty consistent between the genders, but there was one massive difference. We asked people if they were ever distracted by a sexy pedestrian or cyclist, and in the case of males, 29% of males admitted that they had had a dangerous moment of distraction because they caught sight of a pretty girl. The equivalent figure for females was just over 2%.
Yeah, but no, I'm not amazed by that at all, because science has proved that men are much more visual in relation to the opposite sex. Women kind of go a bit deeper, like into our brains and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's entirely true, and it won't surprise anybody listening to us who happens to be a human being will recognise this phenomenon. The males do tend to be visually stimulated by that, and I guess if you're out on the roads, particularly in the towns and in the cities, and particularly during summer, they're busy places. Grafton Street's buzzing, Stephen's Green is buzzing as I came in, and there's lots of distractions that you could see. It could be a juggler or a street performer or any of the things that are going on. And for all drivers, we need to be conscious of that and slow down.
I could help your research by saying I am constantly distracted by women in skirts on bicycles. I think this is the single most distracting thing for drivers. Well, you might mention that to your research.
Well, there you go. Well, in the case of 29% of males, you're dead right, and people would agree with you. But it's extraordinary that if you flip the genders, it's only 2% of females. Now, they do get distracted by other things. Females, for example, tend to be distracted by advertising hoardings, or their eyes can be caught by other things on the streetscape. So it's really only the sexy girl, if you like, that's very different.
But what I was really surprised about, Conor, in this AA survey, was like, I really thought like texting or something was going to come up very quick,
Well, it does, and we know we've asked people separately, and there's a relatively small number of persistent offenders who admit to texting while driving. But I tell you, from an insurance point of view, that can be a very difficult one to figure out, because if you have a normal insurance claim, say somebody has shunted into the back of you in traffic and it's relatively minor, a couple of grand's worth of damage, you never read on an insurance claim form, my mistake, I was texting at the time, or I saw a gorgeous girl go past on a bike in a miniskirt. That doesn't obviously show up in the insurance claims data. We just see that, strangely, there's been another fender bender and a cost incurred. So what's really happening there, I think, takes a little bit more probing to uncover.
But I think the biggest, we're talking what is biggest, but a serious form of distraction is actually the way the modern car is designed, because with the proliferation of computerization within cars, like when my father was driving me to school in the old days in an Austin 7 or whatever it was, all there was something to tell him whether he had petrol or not, and there was something that told him what speed he was at. That was all.
Yeah.
Now
3 gears and
but that was all. Yeah. But now in this modern car, there's a proliferation of buttons. There's a button telling you what your average speed on the road to Cork is, how much petrol you've used, how much petrol you got left in that tank, and all this stuff. And even something as simple as like music and radio.
Yeah.
Because I'm guilty of it. Like you're listening to music and you're, no, I don't like this, and then you're searching for the fast forward button or something,
and you go channel hopping.
Yeah, and it's momentary.
Yeah, but at your fingertips are all of these wonderful gadgets and buttons in a modern car, and they're very comfortable, and you can fiddle with the air conditioning, or you can do this or you can do that. And there's a tendency to do it, particularly in cities. If you're stuck in traffic and you're kind of inching forward, moving a bit, stopping a bit, and you can see it if you're in traffic. The guy in front of me hasn't moved. What's he doing? Oh, he's fiddling with his radio. There he goes. And it's in moments like that you're actually unlikely to be involved in a serious collision. You're probably unlikely to kill anybody. But it's precisely in contexts like that that people will, in daydreaming, drift into the back of the car in front of them. And, that will ruin your day and it'll cost you a fair few bob. Or you could more seriously hit a pedestrian, not see the football that comes rolling out under the car, hit a cyclist. And we're all, men and women equally, or almost equally, we're all prone to these moments. The sexy side appears to be uniquely distracting for men compared to women. But more broadly, we're all guilty of it from time to time. And I think if a survey like this, it's interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people will be amused by it, but I think if there's a lesson, it is we are all prone to these moments of distraction, and it only takes a second, and you could do...
Well, I'm going to get into the car just after 7 o'clock when the show ends, and I'm going to drive to Fox Rock. 25-minute drive, maybe? Something like that.
In July, certainly,
yeah. Well, it is absolutely a guarantee that I'll be distracted momentarily for whatever reason. Now, it is only the grace of God that says that momentary distraction is not either penalises me in some kind of a crash or something far worse. Because the difficulty of now, I think, as the way cars have been designed, the way everything, it lulls you into a sense of false security. Whereas our parents were driving in a much more complicated environment with a simpler motor car.
And in a much more dangerous environment too. Overall we have become safer, but progress doesn't always mean things get better, and the proliferation of distractions is definitely worse now than it was previously. I read some European research a while back that said that 1 in every 500 decisions that a driver makes is a mistake. And that's just normal. If you're driving through traffic, you're going to change lanes now, you're going to get into the right lane, you're going to approach a roundabout, and from time to time you'll do something that's wrong. 99 times out of 100 there are no consequences. Nothing worse than the driver behind you beeping at you, or somebody shaking a fist or whatever. And then once in a blue moon, tragedy strikes. And that could be something relatively straightforward. I shunt you in the back and they're after costing my insurance company a couple of grand and my policy's going to go up. Or, of course, I could knock the child off the bicycle, and then it becomes really, really tragic. And we're all human. There's none of us that are immune for these moments of distraction. And I guess men might be worse than women. They're certainly worse when distracted by sexy females. But even for other categories, men were showing as being slightly worse than females.
In the whole distraction field.
In the whole distraction field. Typically we ask people, were you ever distracted momentarily by something that happened on the roadside? And 15% of men said yes. They were distracted to the point where they had a near miss or gave themselves a fright, and some 13% of women said the same thing. And that appears to be pretty consistent. So maybe the men are being more honest about it, although I doubt that somehow. But I think what it's telling you is that, broadly speaking, if we're not talking about sexy distractions, it's equal between the genders, and we're all prone to it. If we're talking about those other wonderful summer sights that the men out there do love to behold, well, summer is summer, but when driving, keep your mind on your driving, keep your hands on the wheel, as they say.
In the words of the song.
In the words of the song. Keep your beady eyes on the road ahead.
Next, you tell me you had a hit with that, will you?
Many moons ago, George, back when you were a lad.
All right, Director of Policy at the AA, Conor Faulkner.